Welcome UMAC fans and supporters to another version of our UMAC Lessons from Leaders series. Today we're here with Bethany Lutheran College head softball coach Dan Nessler, and as you can see from this interview, unfortunately a little bit different setup than some of the previous editions, with our spring sports seasons being canceled and having to do the interview this way. We're going to still make the best of it and look forward to talking with Dan. So Dan has led Bethany Lutheran softball now for the past 4 seasons. Vikings won the UMAC regular season championship for the first time in program history last year with a 15-1 conference record, impressive 27-12 overall record. And Bethany has qualified for the UMAC tournament every year since Dan took over leading the Viking program. So thanks for joining us today, Dan, and we look forward to chatting even though it's not in person.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Corey. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with your program. Dan, you inherited a program that hadn't had a winning record since 2013. And what were some of the key things from a leadership perspective that you did or needed to do to start building that winning program and culture?
Well, I wanted to go in there first and just kind of see what we had and what the mindset was of the kids. But interesting, I had our very first team meeting that fall going into our untraditional season. And I think I called maybe a 5:30 p.m. meeting, and literally we had girls showing up at 5:29, 5:30, 5:35, up to 5:40. And so one of the first things we implemented was, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late, because they just didn't quite understand the concept of making sure. And yet, honestly, it's just one of those things where, if you're going to do it, I think you need to do it right. And we just had to kind of start getting that culture going where we needed it. But I think, we did that. I think we got things rolling in the right direction. And one of the first things I tried to do was really just start thinking about what kind of kids am I going to recruit. And I wanted to recruit good, solid kids, good students, leaders and competitors, in their high schools. And I think they already know how to win and manage their time, and that's what we tried to do.
Sure. And you've been involved with softball for a long period of time, lots of different roles and different capacities. But how do you stay motivated, passionate? How do you not get complacent, even though you've been around this game, in different roles for extended time?
Well, I always try to talk about myself and with my coaches about our staff, about how can we continue to learn, because we don't know it all. And we can always get good takeaways from the great coaches around the UMAC, the MIAC, the WIAC, or wherever, American River Conference, and emulate some of those top programs and how they prepare, how they get ready to do things. I've went to watch regional tournaments at St. Thomas, watch Northwestern play St. Thomas a couple times, because I feel like at some point we're going to get there. And so I want to make sure that we're not surprised by anything when we do accomplish that. And I think another thing that we've tried to do, Bethany has been very supportive when you start looking at what they've done to help with resources for our budgets, for hiring great assistant coaches and having the help that we need. And then we've also done a really nice job with technology. We've implemented the Blast technology with our kids. We've implemented the Rapsodo technology, pitching and hitting, for our baseball and softball programs. Bethany's been very supportive, and I think we just got to always keep in mind that we don't know everything, and we can get better and we can keep learning.
Sure. And on that note, as you continue to learn and get better in new ways, as you've studied other coaches, other programs, you referenced that in some way earlier, what's one characteristic that you think every successful coach needs to have, as you've done some analysis of other programs or successful coaches?
Well, hard work and being able to stick to it. The recruiting business is not an easy one, because as we get out there, you go to these showcases, you go to these summer club tournaments and everything, and everybody's there, from the Division Ones to the Division Twos to all of the Division Threes in our area. So I think you've got to really work hard. I think you've got to want to keep learning. And I think one of the big things for me, coming from playing with guys and coaching guys, I'm still also trying to learn every day on coaching females, because there's a difference. I love what I do. I love coaching these young gals, and I'm just trying to learn every day from some of the best in the game, especially in the region, on how they handle their players, how they handle situations, and it's a moving target, and I'm trying to get better at it all the time.
Sure. Well, this spring has certainly been unusual, really unprecedented in terms of what we've had to navigate, and unfortunately canceling our season and tournament championships. Perhaps under the category of, leadership is often resourceful and adapting. What have you done this spring to try to still be successful? Maybe it's, for the now, still this spring, or for the future, what you're working on to still try to utilize this spring and being successful for the future?
Well, with the time that we have now with our stay-at-home order and just trying to figure out what's the next step, I think that what I'm trying to do, and I'm encouraging my assistant coaches, we're going to start having Zoom meetings ourselves with our coaching staff to say, how have we gone about our business in practice and in games? Are the procedures we have in place right? Are there better things, better ways to do things? I think we need to try to keep our players and our student athletes engaged, because we had a really tough transition. We came back from Arizona on the 13th of March. Really, it turned into the 14th because we got home at 3 a.m. Threw our stuff in the locker room. Everybody went home for the evening, and we won't see those kids again until they come back to school at the end of August. So it was just really a hard boom, we're done. And how do we maintain the team chemistry, the team atmosphere? So we're going to try to do some Zoom meetings just to get together. I think that some of the TikTok videos that are going out are really, really cool to play. The teams playing catch. We're working with some of our kids to get some ideas on what can we do there to keep not only our kids engaged, but our fans engaged.
Yeah.
And then I just try to encourage them almost every other day on academic online learning is different, and try to stay with it and stay with your academics, because at the end of the day in the D3 model, it's about academics first and hopefully softball a close second, and they need to keep working hard on the academic side.
Sure, absolutely. And you talked about some of the practical things that you'll be doing, this spring, and trying to still utilize, maybe taking a step back a little bit broader, just from a pure leadership standpoint. What stands out to you that you've learned, that you've had to, maybe come to terms with in terms of the spring and leadership? You mentioned that hard transition, getting back from your spring break. I'm sure through that, there were some things that you assessed and learned from a leadership perspective, but just speak on a little bit, broader, even leadership wise, what you're having to do or that you've learned already to this point.
Well, we're trying to just reinforce what we talk about almost on a daily basis when we're with our kids. And that is, setbacks in life are going to happen. It doesn't matter if it's job loss, or you don't get the promotion you wanted, or relationship issues, or financial issues. There's always going to be setbacks. And as we look at this world that we live in, with unfortunately terrorism and pandemics and the things that happen, those things are not going to stop coming at us or at these student athletes. And how do we react, and how do we work through those? I think we're always going to have players that quit, that transfer, that leave the program somehow, some way. But I think the programs where the bulk of the players, the coaching staff, the administration, and everybody stay the course, I think those are the ones that come out the other side and are constant leaders and winners in our program. And is it about winning games? Yeah, it's about winning games. Sure, that's what I was hired to do. But I think it's more than that.
Sure, absolutely. And let's talk about that a little bit. Winning accomplishments. What stands out to you in terms of what you're most proud of to this point in your coaching career? Maybe it's Bethany related, maybe it's, you know, something else, or a couple different highlights that stand out to you as far as, you know, your leadership legacy and your mark. What comes to mind as some of the top on that list or highlights for you?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few things there, I think. Obviously, 2019 winning the UMAC regular season championship, going 15-1, was a big milestone for this program and for Bethany. It had not happened before. And so I think that's something for us to lean on. It set a foundation of expectations from a softball standpoint. And I think that's always good when you got a good, solid foundation. Now, like I said a little earlier, that aside, I mean, I've got two kids myself that have gone through college, that are out working in the workplace, and I think that even though I'm a part-time employee, as you would call it, at Bethany, because I coach softball, but I don't teach or anything else, I think that it's bigger than just softball. We're trying to develop the next leaders for this world and this country. And I think when you start looking at, did we have a successful 2019 on the field? Yes, we did. But I'm more proud of the fact that we also led the conference in team GPA at 3.55 or something like that. That's just really off the charts good. And it shows a lot to these student athletes that we have and that we're recruiting, that we want athletic kids that want to compete, that compete on the field, compete in the classroom, and that's the kind of kids we're looking for. And you know, I think also too, the thing that makes me feel real good is when I do get the text messages, the phone calls, the emails from past players that are looking for letters of recommendation, going through interview processes and moving on in their life, and they'll reach back and need those types of things. And that just makes me proud of what we're doing, and I think we're going in the right direction.
Sure, absolutely. We'll throw one more question at you here, Dan, and then wrap up. Who stands out in terms of influences on your coaching career? Maybe, you know, one or two people that come to mind that have had a significant impact on your coaching style, maybe lessons learned, those types of things. But just speak on, you know, who would be at the top of that list that's made a difference in your life from a coaching perspective.
Well, I would say the one coach probably would be my baseball coach at MSU Mankato, Dean Boyer. He's a Hall of Fame coach, well over 1,000 wins, and just a phenomenal human being. I mean, I was around him for 4 years playing, but then my nephew played there, and I've seen him for a long time in my life. And, you know, just from a person that no matter what the situation, I never once heard him swear. He ran the Athletes for Action stuff on campus, just a great human being, and was really, really all about the kids. And I learned a lot from him. I still visit with him via email once in a while. In fact, a couple of years ago, he came back and helped us a little bit, talk to the kids, you know, and do some things like that. So it was good that way. That's one. And I think also the breeding ground for a lot of the things that I'm doing. When I played fast pitch softball, I was fortunate enough to play with really good players from not only the United States, but Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. And when you kind of start to put your tentacles out there a little bit and see what's going on in different parts of the world, you start to learn things and see things that you hadn't seen before. And I think that's part of that whole learning thing of we're just never done learning. And once you're done learning, I think you're done coaching. So that's what I try to make sure I think of all the time.
Sure. Well, thanks again, Dan, for your time today, continuing our Lessons from Leaders series. Unfortunately, Bethany won't be able to have that chance to defend their regular season title this spring in 2020, but I guess you get to carry that title one more year, and certainly all of us look forward and excited to see all of our spring sport teams back out there a year from now in spring of 21, where the Vikings will look to make it back-to-back titles on the regular season championship and shoot for even more beyond that. So thanks again for your time today, Dan.
Appreciate it, Corey. Thanks for everything that you and Sarah do at the office. You're doing a great job.
Absolutely. You bet.